Group 1. So, we'll be discussing Module 4, which is Learner-Centered Teaching Pedagogy. So, sit back and relax while listening to our presentation. Thanks. Imagine trying to learn something new when you're not motivated at all. It's all difficult, right? That's why today we will be reporting on motivation in learning. So, what is motivation in learning? Motivation is the drive that pushes students to learn. It can come from within the student, which we call intrinsic motivation, or from outside influences known as extrinsic motivation. Motivation is especially important in learner-centered teaching because this approach expects students to be active, involved, and responsible for their own learning. So, there's a well-known idea that says, whoever does the work does the learning. This shows that learning happens best when students actively participate. However, learner-centered learning also requires more effort compared to the traditional teaching where students mostly listen. So because of this, some students may feel challenged or even resistant. So science helps explain this as well. Learning requires the brain to form new neural connection, and that process takes energy. Even though the brain is small, it uses large amount of the body's energy. This means that no matter how well a lesson is planned, learning won't happen unless students are motivated to put in effort. That's why teachers must design lessons that don't just help students learn but also encourage them to slay.
Game-based motivation makes learning more enjoyable and encourages active student participation. When lessons are structured like games, students view learning as a fun and engaging experience rather than a task. This approach is supported by William Glasser's choice theory, 1998, which states that individuals are driven by both physical and psychological needs. The four psychological needs, belonging, power, freedom, and fun, are essential for emotional engagement, and game-based activities help satisfy these needs in the classroom. Additionally, self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan, 1985, explains that motivation can be intrinsic and extrinsic. In game-based learning, intrinsic motivation comes from enjoyment and fulfillment, while extrinsic motivation comes from the rewards. Because students enjoy the game itself, they become naturally motivated to learn and participate. Evoking emotions as a motivation strategy helps increase students' engagement by making them emotionally involved in the lesson. According to the two-factor theory of emotion proposed by Schachter and Singer, emotions occur in two stages. First, students experience physiological arousal such as curiosity, familiarity, or excitement. Second, they cognitively interpret this arousal and label it as a specific emotion. When instructions provide an optimal level of emotional arousal, it reduces boredom and promotes greater motivation and engagement in learning.
I'm Leon Maral D. Reyes from Group 1. Number 2. Arousing curiosity. Arousing curiosity means making the students become interested and eager to learn. For example, when the teacher asks questions, presents interesting ideas, the students become curious, and that's what helps them focus and participate in the lesson. Abraham Harold Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs explains that human needs are arranged in levels. When deficit needs such as biological needs, safety and security, love and belongingness, and esteem needs are already satisfied, they stop motivating the person. The person then focuses on the next unmet needs, which becomes the salient needs. These are called growth needs, such as need to know and understand, cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, self-actualization, and transcendence needs. They continue to motivate a person once they are engaged. Among the growth needs, cognitive needs comes first. This includes the need for understanding and knowledge, curiosity, meaning, exploration, and predictability. Because of these cognitive needs, students are naturally motivated to learn. This explains kung bakit students are more motivated when curiosity is aroused. George Freud, Lowenstein's information gap theory states that students become curious when they realize that there is missing information, and that curiosity motivates them to fill the information gap in their knowledge. The closer the students feel to understanding the information, their curiosity becomes stronger, and they feel satisfied once the information gap is filled. The Gestalt theory of Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Koffler explains that students are motivated to complete things that are incomplete. The principle of closure states that individuals naturally want to fill in what is missing. Arousing curiosity motivates them to fill in or to complete their knowledge gap or the information gap. Number 3, relating to experience. Relating to experience means connecting the lesson to students' real-life experiences. When students can share or recall experiences that is related to the lesson, they feel interested and more involved. The expectancy value theory of Martin Fishbane states that students are more motivated when they believe that they can succeed and when they see the lesson as important. Connecting lessons to students' real-life experiences or personal experiences increases their interest and motivation to learn. By linking the lesson to real-life experiences, students perceive the content as something meaningful, valuable, and important. When students see that the lesson is related to their own experiences, they understand it better and value it more. This makes them more willing to participate and learn. Albert Bandura's self-efficacy theory explains that students become more motivated when they believe in their ability to succeed. Lessons connected to familiar experiences helps students become confident, which encourages active learning.
Expectancy value theory. According to Wakefield and Eccles, the expectancy value theory explains that students' achievement behavior depends on expectancies for success and task value. Expectancy for success means the students believes that they can do the task well, while task value is about why the task is worth doing, whether it is intrinsically enjoyable, important, useful, or costly in terms of effort and time. Kapag naniniwala ang students na kaya niya at mahalaga ang task, mas nagiging motivated siya. Broaden and build theory. According to Fredrickson, the broaden and build theory states that positive emotions such as joy, interest, contentment, pride, and love help broaden students' thinking and actions. When students experience these emotions, they become more open to learning and trying new ideas, which eventually helps build their intellectual, social, and psychological resources. Sa madaling salita, kapag positive ang emotions, mas lumalawak ang learning ng students. Control value theory of achievement emotions. According to Pekran, the control value theory of achievement emotions explains that students' emotions in learning are influenced by their appraisal of control and value. If students feel they have control over the task and see it as valuable, they experience positive achievement emotions like enjoyment and pride. Kapag may control at may halaga ang learning activity, mas nagiging engaged at successful ang students. pointing out similarity and self-efficacy theory. This explanation highlights that students become more interested when the lesson is connected to something familiar to them. According to Albert Bandura's self-efficacy theory, students are more intrinsically motivated when they believe they are capable of achieving the task and feel competent. Kapag may similarity ang lesson sa experiences ng students, tumataas ang self-efficacy nila, kaya mas confident and motivated silang matuto.
Good day, everyone. My name is Angelica Jane Lambino Tanogan from BEd 1-2. And today, I will going to discuss the types of transfer and the importance of learning transfer. According to Mayer, 1987, Perkins and Solomon, 1992, learning transfer is often perceived as carrying over knowledge from one problem or situation to a new situation or problem. It is said to occur when previous learning affects current performance and can also be defined as a transfer of factual knowledge or skill from one setting to another. It means applying what you learn in one situation in other situation. It is important because the real goal of education is not just remembering, but being able to use it in life. Now, let's proceed to our main topic, types of transfer. Number 1, passive transfer. It happens when old knowledge becomes a helper in acquiring new learning. In a way that when you face new tasks, you don't start empty-handed. You take out the skill you already learned and use it to help you succeed faster. Let me give you examples. A student who already knows how to read and sounds out of two-letter consonant vowels like me and go find it easier to learn three-letter consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant. Words like cat and sun. Let me give you another example. When practicing driving motorcycle, it can be easier for you to learn balancing if you can ride a bike. Negative transfer happens when previous learning interferes with current performance. What you learned before makes learning something new harder because your old knowledge refuses to move aside. For example, math symbols. You learn that x means multiply. In algebra, you think x is multiplication instead of a variable. Let me give you another example. A student is used to reading English from left to right. When they begin in learning a language like Arabic, which is written right to left, they might initially struggle and start reading the new script in the wrong direction. High road transfer takes place when you consciously apply abstract, well understood principles from one context to seemingly different one. It's not about copying what you did before. It's about grasping the idea behind it and choosing to apply the idea elsewhere. It happens when you reflect, aware, and fully understand the situation. For example, a student learns the abstract, cause and effect, principle in reading comprehension lesson. Later, they consciously apply the principle of hypothesis they might happen if they forget to water the classroom plant. Another example. In science, you understand the process instead of memorizing. In history class, you focused on understanding events, not just dates. Same learning rule, but different strategies. Number 4, low road transfer. Low road transfer is the automatic use of well-learned skill in a new but similar situation with little or no conscious thinking. It's like your brain is autopilot. Your body and mind knows what to do. For example, you practice highlighting keywords in your textbook every day. Later, during an exam, your eyes automatically scan for keywords in the question without thinking about it. Your practice reading skill transfers automatically. Let me give you another example. You practice proper spacing and indentation in writing essays. When writing in any subjects, your hand does it naturally, even without reminders. Your hand remembers what your mind no longer needs to think about.
I am Abigail Stabilio. Next, we have the forward-reaching transfer or the planned. Here naman is learning something now with the intention to use it later. Example is yung teacher pinapamemorize sa mga students niya yung multiplication table kasi alam ng teacher nila na magagamit nila ito sa division and fractions na lessons nila. And next, we have the backward-reaching transfer or the recognize after the fact. Ito naman, when students suddenly realize something they learned before can help solve the new problem. Ito yung aha moment nila na nakukonect nila yung past experience nila sa new lessons nila. And third, we have the near or specific transfer or yung similar context. Here naman, na-apply naman yung very similar na situation. Like example is yung sa everyday task natin. Like tying shoelaces na kahit different color siya or length is nagagamit pa rin natin yung method na alam natin. And lastly, yung far or general transfer, also known as the remote context. Here naman is yung very different from where it was first learned. Like for example, yung gaming to the real life problem. So na-apply nila yung strategic thinking nila from video games to solve the real world problems.
So good day everyone, my name is Justin S. Valdivino. So now let's talk about the learner-centered instructional approach. So first we have here inductive approach. So yung inductive approach is nag-i-start siya with specific examples, situation, or even real-life problems. So instead na magbigin yung teacher sa rules or theories, hinahayaan niya muna na mag-observe, mag-analyze, and mag-solve na problem yung mga estudyante. And as they work through it, slowly na-discover ng mga students yung concept, principles, rules behind sa specific lesson na yon. And then, sa approach na to, yung students is tinatawag natin sila as active learners. So, hindi lang sila nakikinig sa mga lectures, they're also thinking, discussing, and exploring. So, because of this, yung mga estudyante is tinitake nila more yung responsibility for their own learning compared sa traditional lecture-based or yung deductive approach. So, sa inductive approach, basically, yung mga teacher is ginaguide nila yung students by starting the lesson using things na alam na ng mga estudyante or na-experience na nila. Like giving examples, ganyan, or real-life experiences. And then, the next one is, tinuturuan ng teacher ng bagong ideas yung students step by step kung saan hindi sila mako-confused. And then the third one is in-help ng teacher yung student na i-connect yung new lesson sa kung ano yung kaalaman nila about sa topic na yun or kung ano yung mga prior knowledge nila, dadagdagan ng teacher yon para mas mapalawak yung kaalaman nila. Ganun. And then next is hinahayaan ng teacher na yung mga estudyante niya na mag-work in a small groups and mag-learn sila from each other para mapag-connect nila yung idea nila. And then, ayun, doon mas mapapalawak din yung kaalaman nila about doon sa specific topic na yun or sa lesson na yun. So, example ng inductive approach is sabihin natin sa subject na science. So, instead na mag-start agad yung teacher sa lesson by explaining the definition of the topic is magbibigay muna siya ng example. So, for example, about evaporation. So, instead na magbigay ng definition agad yung teacher is, yung teacher gagawa muna siya ng, magpapakita siya sa students ng wet cloth, and then i-ask na sila na i-observe yon. And then, after some time, after nila ma-observe is, dito na mag-start na mag-ask ng question yung teacher. So, mag-ask siya kung paano naging dry, kung ano nangyari sa tubig, ganyan. So, by that, hahayaan niya yung estudyante niya na mag-discuss or i-discuss kung ano yung na-observe nila based sa pinakita niya. So, after ng mga discussion na yon, so after mag-share ng observation ng students niya is, dito na mag-i-start na i-introduce ng teacher kung ano nga ba talaga yung concept ng evaporation, and i-explain niya yung scientific principle behind that. So, dito, kumbaga, madadagdagan na naman yung knowledge ng mga estudyante, and dito mas malilinawan na sila kung paano and bakit nangyayari yung ganun. And then, in this way nga is, sa inductive approach, pwede natin sabihin na yung mga estudyante is, nadidiscover muna nila yung idea nila about sa specific situation na yun or topic. And then, after some time, malilearn nila kung ano ba yung formal explanation about sa topic na yun by the guide of the teachers. So, second is metacognitive approach. So, yung metacognitive approach is focuses siya on helping students understand how they think and learn. So, yung mga teacher dito is tinuturuan niya students na mag-plan kung paano sila mag-think or mag-solve ng task, and i-monitor kung paano na yung thinking nila, kung may process ba, ganyan. And then, evaluate. I-evaluate nila kung yung thinking na yun is nag-work ba, may progress ba, ganyan. And then lastly is revise. So, yung revise is mangyayari lang siya if needed, if yung lumabas sa evaluation is hindi nag-works. So, dito, papalitan yung strategies ng students kung ano yung swak sa kanila. Ganyan. So, basically, yung approach na to is in-help ng teacher yung students na mas maging aware, independent, and responsible learner sila. So, yung teacher dito is support nila yung students by explaining and modeling thinking strategies and encouraging reflections. For example, ng metacognitive approach is, let's say, problem solving sa subject ng math. So, before ka magsagot, syempre, magpa-plan ka kung paano mo sasagutin, or magpa-plan ka kung anong formula yung gagamitin mo to solve that problem. And then, after mo mag-plan, i-monitor mo siya kung tama ba or may nangyayari ba sa answer mo. And then, after ng monitoring na yun is, i-evaluate mo na siya if nag-work ba yung strategy na ginamit mo sa pag-solve ng problem na yun. So, if hindi, dito papasok syempre yung revise or revision. Syempre, babaguhin mo yung strategy or yung formula para mas masolve mo ng tama yung problem solving na binigay sa'yo ng teacher mo. So, basically, to sum up, yung metacognitive approach is nagfo-focus siya sa thinking about one's own thinking in order for them to learn, solve problems, and make decisions more effectively on their own.
Good day everyone! My topic is all about constructivist approach and inquiry or discovery approach by Salandan 2000 and Sulieta 2006. First, constructivist approach. The constructivist approach means that students learn by building new knowledge from their own experiences and prior knowledge. In this approach, students build new knowledge by connecting new information with their prior experiences, a principle known as apperception, because learning is personal. Each learner may construct meaning differently even when they expose to the same lesson. Instructional characteristic of constructivist approach. First, teaching is not simply transfer of the fact or information. Teacher provide meaningful learning activities. Second, constructivism assumes that learning is personal. Third, the teacher acts as a facilitator of teaching. Fourth, instructional materials focus on learning activities and experiences. Lastly, lessons are activity-centered, allowing students to gain personal knowledge through active participation and reflection. For example, in a lesson about plants, the teacher begins by asking students about their experiences in planting at home. Students then observe a real plant, identify its parts, and explain their function. Through discussion and activities, students construct their own understanding of the lesson. This makes learning meaningful, relevant, and long-lasting. Next is inquiry or discovery approach by Salandan 2000 and Sulyeta 2006 also. The inquiry or discovery approach focuses on helping students find answer to their own question through investigation and problem solving. This approach follows processes similar to scientific method, which helps students become independent and self-directed learners. Instructional characteristic of inquiry or discovery approach. First, students regularly use scientific processes like observing and experimenting. Second, students actively investigate to find answers. Third, encourages higher order thinking, answering the questions how and why. Third, promotes independent and group learning. Last, learning exciting, meaningful, and lasting. Example of inquiry or discovery approach. In a lesson about floating and sinking, the teacher asks students to predict which object will float or sink. Students test the object to the water, observe the result, record data, and explain their finding. Instead of being told the concept, students discover it through investigation. Both approaches emphasize active participation and learning-centered teaching. Together, these approaches develop critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and deep understanding. Thank you.
I'm Beyonce Calso and I'm going to tackle about conceptual approach and reflective teaching. Conceptual approach. What is conceptual approach? It is a way of teaching where students figure out big rules, principles, or main ideas by themselves by starting with lots of small specific examples or pieces of information. It helps students to understand big ideas instead of just memorizing facts. It is important because instead of just knowing what, it's about knowing why and being able to use that knowledge not just in school but in everyday life. Now, let's tackle about instructional characteristics. Number 1. Teaches students how to categorize and organize information. An example of this is, kids get to have a pile of pictures of animals. Instead of naming all of them, make the kids put them into groups. For example, animals that have fur, scales, and feathers. By doing so, they learn to organize by traits, not just list things randomly. Number 2. Focuses on understanding broader principles and concepts that apply to many examples. A simple example of this is, instead of making them memorize 3 plus 3 plus 3 is equals to 9 and 4 plus 4 plus 4 is equals to 12 separately, the teacher should show 3 groups of 3 cookies that sort multiplication, that 3 times 3 means 3 groups of 3. This method will make the kids more understand what you are teaching and thinks that learning is easy because you use examples that caught their attentions and interests. Number 3. Encourages flexible transfer, using the ideas in new situations instead of rote memorization. A kid learns the simple idea that if you give plant a water plus sunlight, it grows. If you take them away, it dies or stays small. Instead of memorizing the list of plant rules, they get to have a cause and effect that can transfer to real life situations. For example, I didn't get to eat my breakfast, so I'm hungry. Reflective teaching is when the teacher takes time to thoughtfully look back at their own teaching, what they did in class, why they did it in that way, and what actually happened as a result. Instead of teaching and moving forward, the teacher pauses and asks themselves these questions. Did the students really understand? Was the activity helpful or confusing? Or, what do I do differently next time to make it better? According to John Dewey, he described reflective thinking as active, persistent, and carefully considerations of any belief or practices. A reflective teacher doesn't just repeat the same lessons year after year. They keep examining and improving. Now, let's go to instructional characteristics. Ethics for caring. This means the teacher genuinely cares about the students as a real person, not just a kids to teach. Caring isn't fluffy, it's a strong duty to really understand each student deeply. To show this caring, teachers use three main ways. Number 1. Confirmation. Notice and encourage what makes each student special and unique. Number 2. Dialogue. Have real, honest, open conversations with students about their feelings, worries, values, beliefs, and concerns, not just about school stuff. Number 3. Cooperative practice. Work together with students in a helpful guiding way, like counseling, supporting, or teaming up, instead of just lecturing or dumping knowledge. When teachers care like this, students feel safe, valued, and motivated. They open up, try harder, and learn better because the classroom feels like a supportive relationship, not a cold transaction. They build trust, reduces behavior problems, help emotional growth, and makes moral and ethical learning comes naturally. Without caring, even smart teaching can fail because students shut down. Constructivist approach. Students don't just soak up facts like a sponge. Instead, they build their own understanding by thinking about and connecting new ideas from what they already know from past experiences. The key step is reflection, looking back to those experiences, analyzing them, and turning them into personal meaning or new ideas or concepts. Without that thinking step, no new learning happens. Tactful problem solving. This is using smart thinking to figure out solutions or create new ideas, concepts when facing new challenges or new situations. Tactful here means doing it thoughtfully, sensitively, and skillfully, not rashly and carelessly. Teaching isn't perfect. Surprises, confusions, or failures happens every day. Tactful problem solving helps teachers and students handle those moments wisely instead of getting stuck or frustrated. It turns problems into growth opportunities. For students, it builds critical thinking, creativity, and independence, skills they need for real life, not just exams.
So good day, my name is Malchar and A. De La Cruz, and here are my parts for our reporting. So we're gonna tackle integrative approach by Di Malanta 2016. It aims at providing students with unified view of reality and in enhancing their capability to acquire real-life skills. This is done by linking learning contents between and among subjects. By doing so, the students are able to see the connections of information across disciplines, thus discouraging them to see topics in isolation. So dito, parang ginagamit natin yung approach na to para mapalawak yung kaalaman ng estudyante. So, ang example nito is, kunwari, ang mga elementary level, tinuturuan natin silang mag-solve ng basic math problem. Ayan, sabihin natin, tinuturuan natin silang mag-solve ng basic math problem. At the same time, tinuturuan natin silang mag-identify ng number. Then, kasabay nun ay ang pagtuturo natin kung paano magbilang. So, now, pupunta na tayo sa instructional characteristic ng integrative approach. So, it uses questioning. So, nagkakonduct din daw ito ng mga activity like problem solving, syempre, para siguro ma-enhance yung critical thinking skills ng bata. Then, gumagamit din ito ng success based in creating a curriculum derived from different disciplines, use of different instructional techniques, and preparation of different learning activities para hindi naman maboard yung mga bata. And also, it involves the process in which a particular field of knowledge could be connected in other fields of knowledge. So, ayan, dito naman is yung paglilink nga natin yung mga subjects sa isa't isa. Halimbawa, sa shape, tinuturuan natin silang mag-identify ng shape. At the same time, tinuturuan natin, yung shape na yon, inililink natin sa mga flowers. Ganon. So, parang mas pinapalawak nga natin yung knowledge ng bata sa approach na to. In general, it gives instruction in 2 or more disciplines. Through this way, the content of instruction in a lesson becomes richer. So, mas maraming natututunan yung bata. Hindi natin siya ina-isolate sa isa lang na topic.
Let us proceed to the learner-centered instructional methods. But first, what is it? According to Westwood, these methods are best used when the goal of the lesson is to help students learn how to study independently, become more responsible for their own learning, work well with others, and build knowledge through real experiences. These methods are based on 3 main principles. First, the student should be actively involved in the learning process, not just listening to the teacher but also taking part in activities. Second, the lesson should be interesting and relevant to students for them to be motivated and to participate. Then lastly, learning should happen in real-life situations for students to apply what they learn and use their knowledge to solve everyday problems. The first method is the laboratory method, where students are like scientists and they learn by doing observations and experimentations using actual materials and learning from their own experience. John Walton gave 3 aims of this method. First, to give first-hand experience in the laboratory to increase student interest. Second, to let students participate and discover new things. And lastly, to help students learn how to use tools and equipment properly. There are 2 types of laboratory methods, the experimental and the observational. If I'll be giving an activity with experimental laboratory method and following the steps, it will be like this. Step 1. Introduction. Class, today we will have an activity where we will find out which objects sink and which objects float in the water. And we will learn by doing an experiment like real scientists. Step 2. Unlocking of word difficulty. To have no confusion, when we say sink, it means an object goes to the bottom of the water. And when we say it floats, it means the object stays on top of the water. Step 3. Reading of guide questions. During the activity, you should be guided with these questions. Which objects will sink? Which objects will float? Why do you think this happens? Step 4. Reading of procedure. What we will do first is fill the basin with water, then place the objects one at a time into the water. Then observe what happens and record the results. Step 5. Presentation of materials and apparatuses. Our materials are basin, water, coin, stone, leaf, or any object. Step 6. Recalling standard for working. Remember to handle materials carefully. Do not splash water and follow instructions properly. Step 7. Activity proper. Now, one by one, place the object into the water and observe which object sinks and which floats, and write your observations. Step 8. Discussion. Now that you observe what happened, we conclude that some objects sink because they are heavier, while lighter objects float. That is an activity with the experimental laboratory method because the students learn by doing the experiment themselves, while the observational laboratory method focuses on acquiring facts and knowledge through observing and experiencing real objects and situations firsthand. The second method is problem-solving method. It is when students are given a problem and they have to figure out the solution step by step. And this time they are like detectives. A problem of student in school is classified into 3. First, mental. Problems that are contemplative, imaginative, like puzzles. Second, symbolic, which requires written language for solution. Then lastly, real or material, physical, or practical problems. In real-life scenario, we are unconsciously doing this method when we face a problem, no matter how small it is. For example, if a student saw that her water bottle is leaking, she will find a solution to fix it. And by doing that, she is already doing the step 1 in this method, which is sensing and defining the problem. Then she will analyze and guess why it is leaking. Or the step 2, formulation of hypothesis. Then step 3, she will now test the hypothesis. She will try to tighten the cup and check for crack. Then she will analyze the possible solution for it, or the step 4, analysis, interpretation, and evaluation. Then she will tighten the cup because it is loose and she will formulate a conclusion, which is the final step. As simple as that, we already use the problem-solving method. We use this problem-solving method to train our reasoning and critical thinking, to learn how to deal with new situations, to gain practical knowledge and skills, to solve mental puzzles and real-life problems, and to learn how to find solutions on our own. But we need to make sure the problem is interesting for students and appropriate for their age. We should also guide by asking questions to encourage suggestions of alternative solutions. Then, the third method, project method. In this method, you are like an engineer because this method focuses on creating, experimenting, and applying the knowledge in real life. It aims to teach students to get the best out of life, not in the future, not when they grow up, but here and now. It is based on the idea of Dewey that education is not a preparation for life or further living, but a part of living. For the steps of this method, there are 2 phases. In the first phase, it includes introduction, presentation of the problem, and planning. In the second phase, it includes reading of procedure, presentation of materials and tools, recalling standard for working, and work period. If I would use this method, here is how I will execute it. First phase, step 1, introduction. Class, today we will create a daily planner to help us organize our day and manage our time better. Step 2, presentation of problem. Many students find it hard to remember homework or activities. How can we make a planner that helps us stay organized? Step 3, planning. The students will plan the layout of the planner and the materials needed. Proceeding to the second phase, step 4, reading of procedure. Step by step, designing the layout, labeling days, and decorating. Step 5, presentation of materials and tools. You will use paper, pens, and coloring materials. Step 6, work period. You may now start to create your planner. After doing the activity, I'll ask the students, how does this planner help me? and this may result to students developing their skills in time management. According to NOWAR, there are three classifications of projects. First, individual experience, or projects that include problems on time or money management. And an example of this is a daily journal to track your day and time. Second, family experience, which focuses on cooperative effort of the family, like home decorating or meal planning. Lastly, school and community experiences, which provides opportunities for students to gain insights into community progress. According to Kilpatrick, the first classification is the construction project, the most well-known type of project, like building a model bridge. Then enjoyment project, or participation in activities that bring out satisfaction and enjoyment, like crocheting or creating music. 3. Problem project, which focus on improving one's skill. Then lastly, learning project, which is created through an inner drive to learn something new or new skills. According to RISC, the first classification of project is physical or material project, similar with construction project of Kilpatrick. It involves presentations of ideas or application of principles in concrete form. Then, learning project, the same with Kilpatrick's learning project. Then lastly, intellectual or problem project, which includes deductive or inductive solutions to intellectual problems, like determining how socioeconomic status affects the individual's attitudes towards academic work. When choosing a project, the following should be observed. Number 1, educational value. Number 2, adaptability to the needs of the situation. Number 3, availability and low cost of materials. Number 4, justification of time consumed in terms of its results. Number 5, capability of finishing the project in the allotted time. Number 6, decided advantage of these methods over others. And lastly, adaptability of project performance to school schedule. And it should also match project to students' ability and interest, explain goals and evaluation, check plans and materials, supervise minimally, recognize good work, display models, ensure students do their own work, and reflect on learning.
So, before we proceed in this part of the reporting, let me introduce myself first. I am Ashley Macy Gabati, your reporter for this part of the module. So, the fourth instructional method was the field trip method. This method focuses on learning particular facts by providing first-hand experiences of the lesson or topic. So, yung field trip method ay isa sa mga strategic teaching kung saan dinadala ang mga estudyante sa labas ng classroom para matuto sila directly from the real-life experiences. A field trip is not only intended for visits in places, but may be made to places within the walking distance outside the classrooms. The class may study the trees, flowers, or rocks in the schoolyards. So, sa halip na puro lecture or libro lang ang pinag-aaralan ng mga students or nakikita ng mga students, yung mga students po natin during field trip ay nakakakita, nakakahawak, at nakaka-observe sila ng mga actual na bagay na connected sa mga pinag-aaralan nila or sa mga lessons or topics nila. Yung mga teachers naman ang nag-o-organize ng mga pagbisita ng mga lugar tulad ng mga museums, historical sites, factories, farms, and science centers na makakatulong naman sa pag-aaral ng mga estudyante during the field trip. Ang purpose naman ng field trip method ay i-connect yung mga lessons nila sa nangyayari sa reality. Kaya mas nagiging meaningful or interesting yung pag-aaral ng mga bata. So, bakit nga ba mahalaga ang field trip method? During field trip method or by using the field trip method, mas nagiging concrete yung learning ng mga bata. hindi na lang nila basta ini-imagine yung isang bagay, kundi alam na nila yung ibig sabihin o itsura nun dahil sa mga actual experience nila, mas natututunan nila yung about those specific things. And lastly, develops critical thinking. Nade-develop yung critical thinking nila pag nakakabuo sila ng mga questions and reflections na pwede nilang sabihin o itanong sa mga teachers nila after the field trip. So now, let's proceed to the fifth and last instructional method. It is the demonstrative or demonstration method. But it is also called the showing method. It is a method which is usually considered to be teacher-dominated, but it may be used in learner-centered teaching if it is selected students who will be tasked to conduct the demo. Nai-apply natin yung demonstration method during reporting by simply assigning our students a topic and bahala na silang mag-report about the topic based on their own understanding. Basically, it involves showing how to operate, manipulate equipment, or how to perform procedures while the class observes. Kaya nga po sinabi ko during reporting. Kasi during reporting, na ipapakita ng mga students kung ano or paano nga ba nila natutunan yung isang bagay habang pinapakinggan or naririnig din sila ng mga kaklase nila and na-adapt din ng ibang mga bata yung natutunan ng bata na nagre-report sa harapan. This method is often employed when the use of sophisticated equipment and technical know-how of the teacher or resource person is needed in conducting the demonstration, or when the materials that are needed are not easily available or are expensive. If time allows it, the teacher could ask for a repeat demonstration from a selected group of students. This could help the teacher to immediately assess his students' understanding of what they have seen in the demonstration. So, by the time na nangyari na yung reporting ng specific group of students, doon na magtatanong yung teacher about the reports. Kung totoo bang natutunan nila o alam ba talaga nila yung nire-report nila.
I'm Crisel Lane Empeldes, and today I'll discuss about the Learner-Centered Instructional Techniques number 4, and it's partner learning according to Ornstein 1990. So what is partner learning? Partner learning is a teaching strategy where students work in pairs to help each other learn. So, ibig sabihin, ang partner learning po is, ibig sabihin, dalawa yung students, dalawang bata yung magtutulungan kung paano i-explain or i-analyze yung isang lesson. For example, it can be chosen by a student or it can be assigned by a teacher. So, this strategy often used when teachers want to review a lesson, share ideas, and check their understanding of a topic. Partner learning is also known as having a study buddy. So, what is a study buddy? A study buddy is someone who helps you understand the lesson. Partners are responsible for supporting each other, but it is important to remembering that each student is still accountable for their own learning. So, maganda daw po itong partner learning kasi nagagamit yung self-learning ng mga bata. Kasi pag dalawang students lang, mas matutulungan sila kasi silang dalawa lang yung nasa group na yon. And this is the role of a teacher in partner learning. So, first is give a specific time limit. So, time helps students stay focused and avoid talking about unrelated topics. So, mahalaga daw na kapag ginagamit ang partner learning is binibigyan mo ng time yung students mo para maging focus sila at ma-avoid nila yung mga magsayang ng oras. So, and give less time first. Pangalawa yon. If students need more time, the teacher can add it. This prevents students from getting bored or distracted. So, usually, ang mga students kasi kapag nalalaman nila na mas mahaba yung oras nila na sa pag-aaral is sabi mag-chill muna bago gawin. So, sabi dito, give less time first para wala silang bored na minutes or hour para gawin na agad nila yung kailangan nilang gawin. So, teachers should give at least like short time period and lagdagan na lang ng teacher if kailangan pa ng students yung time. Even though partners help each other, each student is still responsible of their own learning. Kasi sa partner learning, give and take to, hindi lang isang students yung nagbibigay ng learning niya, share sila ng ideas, dalawang students dapat yung natututo dito.
Learner-centered instructional techniques number 6. Role-playing by Popoy Won 2014. So what is role-playing? Role-playing is a learner-centered technique where students are asked to assume the role of another person and act it out. It is usually impromptu, meaning students are not given a fixed script. So, ang role-playing is yung isang ginagawa ng mga students na ina-act nila yung binibigay sa kanila na role. For example, ibigay sa kanilang role si Elsa, mag-a-act sila as Elsa. Pag-aaralan nila kung ano ba yung mga traits ni Elsa o paano gumalaw si Elsa. Parang igagawin nila yon, i-act nila. So, minsan daw, ang role-playing is hindi sila binibigyan ng script. Mostly is impromptu or yung students mismo yung naggagawa ng sasabihin nila, nag-iisip ng sasabihin nila. So, in role-playing, students are given an open-ended situation where they must make a decision, resolve a conflict, or complete an unfinished story. This helps make learning meaningful and connected to real-life situations. So, mas madali daw itong makatulong sa students kasi nagagawa sila ng mga decision or nagsosolve sila ng mga conflict. And by role-playing, nade-develop ng students ang kanilang critical thinking, decision-making, communication, problem-solving skills, self-awareness, at syempre teamwork kasi usually kapag ganito, role-play, groupings to. So, there are types of role-playing. So, first is impromptu historical role-playing where a student acts as historical characters without a script. So, ang gagawin lang dito is bibigyan lang siya ng information about sa historical character na yon pero hindi siya bibigyan ng sasabihin, ng script. Siya na bahala maggawa ng impromptu niya na sasabihin. Kasi sasabihin lang ng teacher sa kanya, halimbawa kung ano yung paano yung character, paano gumalaw, or mga information about dun sa historical na yon. So, pangalawa is dramatic plays, mock trials, or mock elections. So, it is a student act out real events like court cases or elections. So, dito naman is yung parang mga nagbobotohan sa mga cases, sa mga trials. Kung wari, dito naman mag-a-act yung student as attorney, maging attorney sila, or may mga botohan sa election. So, it is a dramatic play. At pangatlo naman ay ang classroom problem resolution where a student act out classroom problems and find solutions. So, usually, ganito yung mga ginagamit sa mga role-play na sa mga high school kasi dito naman is parang nagagawa nila ng totoong solusyon. Parang mas gusto binibigay ng mga teacher yung ganito kasi parang naging real-life situation na nag-iisip sila ng mga desisyon na dapat nilang gawin. So, dito, coming from the word classroom, yung mga problema sa classroom nila, tinitingnan nila kung ano yung mga problema, tas by role-playing, nasusolusyonan nila yon. At ang panghuli ay ang social skills practice. Dito ay students practice proper behavior such as handling conflicts or talking politely. So, dito naman, ayan, practicing the proper behavior, ina-act nila, and such as handling conflicts and talking politely sa mga tao. So, dapat daw kapag magpapa-roleplay ang teacher, these are the important considerations. So, it must know what students can handle. Dapat alam ng teacher kung ano lang yung kaya ng students. Explain roles and goals clearly para hindi magkalituhan. Make the situation realistic and tell students how they will be graded para malaman nila kung saan sila dapat mag-focus or ano dapat yung galingan nilang part.
So, dito din, may procedure din daw ang role-playing. Merong mga steps na pinrovide dito. Step 1 is choose a situation. The teacher picks a real-life problem or an issue. So, yung teacher din yung magbibigay ng topic nila kung anong problema ba yung dapat nilang solusyonan, a real-life problem or an issue. So, pangalawa is preparation and warm-up. The teacher explain the situation and role. So, yung teacher naman yung mag-e-explain kung ano yung role nila, kung ano ba yung sitwasyon na gaganapan nila. Pangatlo is select participants. Students are assigned roles or volunteer, others observe. So, pwede namang yung students yung ma-assign sa role na yun, or pwede din sila mag-volunteer para mas maganda yung pag-act nila nun. Kasi kapag volunteer, galing sa'yo yung gusto mo yung role na yun. So, step 5, conduct the role play. So, ayun na. Students act normally. Roles can be switched. Parang magiging, kung ano yung binigay sa'yo na role, yun na dapat yung magiging i-act mo. At sa step 5 is debrief, with which the class discusses what happened and what they've learned. So, parang reflection pala to. Magre-reflect yung mga students kung ano ba yung nangyari, ano ba yung natutunan nila sa nangyari na roleplay. So, eto yung mga usually examples ng roleplaying. So, for example, yung teacher nagbigay na siya ng situation, sabi niya, bullying in school. So, madali na lang yan. Usually, mga high school students, ginagamit to as role-playing. Square, yung isang students, nagpe-play siya as siya yung nabubully. Tapos, yung another students naman, nag-role niya as siya yung bully, gano'n. Tapos, yung others naman, nag-observe sila kung ano yung nangyayari. The student act how the situation might happen in real life, and afterward, they might switch role to better understand each other, na kapag ano pwedeng mangyari kapag nang-bully ka ng tao, parang real life situations na magmimig sila ng tamang desisyon kasi nakita nila sa role-playing. So, in summary, ang role-playing is the simplest form of acting or being someone else. So, and meron din tinatawag na sociodrama. And sociodrama uses a role-playing to solve a problem. Dito naman yung sociodrama is ginagamit mo naman yung role-playing para, makasolve ng problem, ganun, may masolusyonan ka na problema gamit ang role-playing. At ang simulation naman, it is the most complex and uses role-playing in a detailed model of real or imaginary situation. So, usually, ito daw yung pinaka complex na ginagamit sa role-playing kasi sa simulation, mas detailed, mas real-life situation, at mas maintindihan kasi detailed yung ginagamit nila dito. Learner-Centered Instructional Techniques number 7, Fishbowl, by Goldbook Toolkit 2019. So, a fishbowl is a teaching techniques used for a large class. It helps students participate in discussion, listen carefully, and reflect on different ideas. So, ang purpose daw ng fishbowl is to improve discussion skills ng mga students, practice listening and respect, develop social and communication skills kasi ginagamit ito sa mga larger na classes, learn to express and understand different viewpoints. So, how does fishbowl works? The class is divided to 2 groups. So, there are 2 groups, the inner group and outer group. The inner group is students who are discussing so, for example, may bilog, nakabilog yung mga students, tapos may group din naman na nasa gitna nila. For example, merong mga group din dito sa may gitna. So, ang nasa gitna na circle is they're discussing, and yung nasa may outer naman na circle, tinatawag na outer circle, students who are listening and observing. So, this is the process or steps how to do fishbowl process. So, step number 1, the teacher explained the topic and discussions rule. Step number 2, students in the inner circle begin discussing. Yung nasa gitna na mga students sa inner, magdi-discuss na. Step number 3, students in the outer circle listen and reflects on the ideas that shared. So, makikinig lang sila, mag-self-reflect sila sa ideas na nare-receive nila galing sa inner circle. Step number 4, some students from outer circle replace those in the inner circle. So, kapag tapos na mag-discuss, mapapalitan na ng nasa inner, yung mga nasa outer students, magpapalit sila para give and take. Kapag tapos sila mag-discuss, yung turn naman mag-discuss ng nasa outer circle, magpapalit lang. So after the activity, all students discuss together and reflect on the process. So the teacher's role in the fishbowl is the teacher will choose the topics, the discussion topic, and set the objectives and explain the rules such as asking open-ended questions, taking turns when speaking, disagreeing respectfully. So, ayun, nagtitake turns kung kailan sila mag-speak, may time kung kailan sila pwede mag-speak, may time kung kailan sila makikinig lang. At dapat kapag magdi-disagree naman sa opinion ng nasa inner, is kailangan respectful pa din. So, Fishbowl by Goldbook is really effective because it is used to encourage participation and reflection and gives opportunity of students to discuss or self-reflect by their own kasi nagtitake turn sila, hindi lang yung mga nasa inner yung nagdi-discuss. Kapag tapos na ng nasa inner, magdi-discuss na din yung mga nasa outer. So, magpapalit para magti-take turns at ma-discuss nila yung gusto nilang sabihin.
Today, I am reporting on debating as a teaching strategy. Debating is an old instructional method that dates back to ancient times, especially with Protagoras of Abdera, known as the father of debate. Although it involves two opposing sides, the main goal of debating education is to help students learn not to win arguments. Through debating, students develop critical thinking, research, and communication skills such as listening, speaking, and defending. A debate starts with a formal proposition that suggests a change in the current situation. Speakers then alternate between affirmative and negative sides, followed by refutation and rebuttal. The affirmative team carries the burden of proof and proposes a plan, while team captains end the debate by summarizing the main arguments. Implementation tips for learner-centered teaching. So, next we will discuss some implementation tips that help make learner-centered teaching more effective and engaging for students. So, first, let's talk about discussion prompts. So, teachers should use open-ended questions that allow students to share different ideas and perspectives. So, these prompts can help deepen understanding of a lesson, support social and emotional development, or even introduce a new topic. So, for example, asking students which character they relate to most in a story, or what makes someone a good friend. So, encourages them to think critically and personally connect with the lesson. So, another helpful strategy is the use of sound and visual resources. So, these include CDs, DVDs, video clips, interactive games, and PowerPoint presentations with audio. So, these materials help capture students' attention and make lessons more interesting. So, however, it is important for teachers to review all materials beforehand and provide questions so students know what to focus on. We also have microcomputer resources. Computers support inquiry, communication, and problem-solving skills. Through activities like research and basic programming, students learn how to think logically. When computers are connected to the internet, teachers must make sure students only access appropriate and safe websites. So another common used materials is pictures and pictorial representations. So this includes photos, drawings, and sketches. They should be clear, attractive, accurate, and easy to see. Incorrect or misleading images can confuse students, especially when the object is unfamiliar to them. Another commonly used materials is pictures and pictorial representations. These include photos, drawings, sketches, and they should be clear, attractive, accurate, and easy to see. Incorrect. Closely related to these are symbolic and graphic representations such as graphs, charts, and symbols. These tools help present information in a simple way and organized way. Examples includes bar graphs, pie charts, pictographs, and tally charts. Tally charts, which are especially useful in showing data and comparisons. So, teachers may also use projectors, viewers, players, and recorders. LED projectors, overhead projectors, and multimedia players allow lessons to be more visual and interactive. Audio files like MP3 and video files like MP4 help support different learning styles. Another important aspect is using media sources found in school and communities. This includes libraries, school gardens, laboratories, museum, local industries, and even professionals in the community. Field trips and interviews allow students to learn beyond the classroom and connect lessons to real-life experience. To support meaningful discussions, teachers must also prepare students properly. This includes choosing students for activities like fishbowl discussions, setting clear expectations, and allowing students time to reflect after discussions. So, classroom setup and the teacher's role as a facilitator are also important to ensure respectful and productive conversations. So, finally, learner-centered teaching uses different discussions and group techniques such as brainstorming, number 1, which encourage students to share many ideas without judgment. Number 2, Phillips 66, where small groups discuss and report ideas in a limited time. So, 3 is buzz sessions, which involve quick small group discussions, and roundtable conferences where students share their knowledge to each other.
This is Judy De Guzman speaking, and now we're gonna talk about instructional materials and tools for learning-centered teaching. Sa learner-centered teaching, mahalagang tandaan na ang pangunahing factor na dapat nating pagfokusan ay ang mga mag-aaral at ang kanilang learning process. Kaya kapag pumipili tayo ng instructional materials, hindi lang basta kung ano ang available, kundi kung ano ang pinakaangkop at pinaka-epektibo para sa learners. Unahin natin ang mga prinsipyo sa pagpili ng mga instructional materials. Una, ang instructional materials ay dapat meaningful, interesting, at appropriate sa edad, maturity level, ability, at social development ng mga estudyante. Halimbawa, kung elementary students ang tinuturuan natin, mas epektibo ang concrete at visual materials kaysa sa puro text lamang. Pangalawa, dapat itong piliin base sa relevance nito sa lesson objectives. Ibig sabihin, may malinaw na layunin kung bakit ginagamit ang isang material. Kung hindi ito directly nakakatulong sa pag-achieve ng learning outcomes, mas mabuting huwag na lamang itong gamitin. Pangatlo, ang content ng instructional materials ay dapat significant at authentic. Dapat tama ang impormasyon at may real-life connection upang mas madaling maunawaan at matandaan ng mga estudyante. Pang-apat, ang instructional materials ay dapat kayang makamit ang predetermined outcome ng lesson. Hindi lang siya pampaganda ng presentation, kundi may malinaw na ambag sa e-learning. Isa pa, dapat isaalang-alang ang relative value ng material. Worth it ba ang oras, effort at resources na ginugol sa paghahanda nito kumpara sa learning na makukuha ng mga estudyante? At panghuli, mahalaga rin ang feasibility. Kailangan nating itanong, usable ba ang material given the time constraint, class size, at classroom arrangement? Kung mahirap gamitin sa actual classroom setup, maaaring hindi rin ito magiging effective. Ngayon naman, ating pag-usapan ang iba't ibang uri ng instructional materials at tools na maaaring gamitin ng mga guro. Una narito, ang realia at representation of realia. Ang realia ay tumutukoy sa mga tunay na bagay na ginagamit bilang teaching aids. Halimbawa nito ay totoong bulaklak sa science, coins sa math, or pagkain sa lessons tungkol sa fractions. Mas nagiging epektibo ang realia lalo na sa mga batang nasa concrete operational stage pa lamang dahil mas natututo sila kapag nagagamit ang kanilang mga pandama tulad ng panghawak, pagtingin, at pagsusuri sa object. Isa pang advantage ng realia ay hindi ito kailangang maging mahal dahil karamihan sa mga ito ay makikita lamang sa paligid. Gayunpaman, may mga pagkakataon na hindi pwedeng dalhin ang real object sa loob ng classroom. Maaaring masyadong malaki, delikado, masyadong mahal, o hindi available. Dito pumapasok ang representation of realia, tulad ng models at mock-ups. Ang model ay isang scaled replica ng isang real object. Layunin nitong ipakita ang itsura ng objects ng halos katulad ng tunay maliban sa size. Halimbawa nito ay globe at solar system model. Samantalang ang mock-up ay hindi eksaktong kopya ng real object. Sa halip, ipinapakita nito kung paano gumagana ang isang object o sistema. Mas nakafocus ito sa function kaysa sa actual appearance. Mayroong dalawang uri ng models. Ito ay ang solid models at ang cutaway models. Solid models na ginagamit upang pag-aralan ang panlabas na anyo ng object. Cutaway models na nagpapakitang ng internal structure tulad ng layers of the earth o soil layers. Sa pamamagitan ng mga model at mock-ups, mas nauunawaan ng mga estudyante ang relasyon ng mga bahagi ng isang object at kung paano ito gumagana bilang isang buo. Pangalawang uri ay ang sound and visual resources. Kabilang dito ang CDs, DVDs, video clips, interactive educational games, at PowerPoint presentation na may voice recordings. Malaki ang naitutulong ng mga ito sa pagpapalinaw ng lesson lalo na kung abstract ang topic. Ngunit mahalaga na i-preview muna ng guro ang buong content bago ito gamitin sa klase upang masigurong angkop ito sa edad at learning objectives ng mga estudyante. Makakatutulong din ang pagbibigay ng guide questions bago ipanood o iparinig ang materials upang malaman ng mga estudyante kung ano ang dapat nilang bigyang pansin. Sunod naman ay ang microcomputer resources. Ito ay tumutukoy sa paggamit ng computer sa instruction. Nakatutulong ito sa paglinang ng communication skills, inquiry skills, logical thinking, at problem-solving skills ng mga mag-aaral. Sa tulong ng computers at internet, nagkakaroon ng access ang mga estudyante sa mas malawak na impormasyon. Gayunpaman, responsibilidad ng guro na magbigay ng proper guidance at restriction upang masigurong angkop at ligtas ang mga online resources na ginagamit. Sunod naman ay ang pictures at pictorial representations. Ito ay ang mga flat at still image tulad ng photos, drawing, at sketches. Madali itong gamitin at epektibo lalo na kung malinaw at accurate ang larawan. Gayunpaman, kailangang siguraduhin ng teacher na tama ang scale at detalye ng larawan dahil ang inaccuracy ay maaaring magdulot ng kalituhan sa mga estudyante. Panglima naman ay ang symbolic and graphic representations. Kabilang dito ang pictographs, bar graphs, pie graphs, at line graphs. Ginagamit ang mga ito upang ipakita ang data at concepts sa mas concise at madaling mauunawaan na paraan. Bukod dito, nakatutulong ito sa pag-develop ng analytical at interpretative skills ng mga learners. Sunod naman ay ang projector, viewers, players, and recordings. Sila ay kabilang sa mga audiovisual instructional tools na commonly ginagamit sa classroom. Ang projectors tulad ng LCD projector ay ginagamit para mag-display ng PowerPoint presentations, images, at videos sa mas malaking screen para nakikita ng buong klase ang lesson.
Mayroon ding overhead projector na gumagamit ng transparencies at opaque projector na nakatutulong sa guro upang mag-project ng mga imahe kagaya ng book pages or pictures directly on the screen without converting them. Ang viewers naman ay ginagamit para ma-organize, ma-display, at ma-control ang sequence ng visual materials, kagaya ng slides or images. Nakakatulong ito para mas maging structured ang lesson flow, especially kapag step-by-step ang discussion, dahil dito, mas madaling ma-follow ng learners ang topic at mas nagiging focus sila sa important points. Samantala, ang players and recorders ay usually in the form of MP3 and MP4 files. Ang MP3 ay mainly for audio materials, while MP4 is a multimedia format na nag-i-include ng audio, video, images, and even text. Malaki ang tulong ng mga ito sa pag-clarify ng lesson, especially kapag abstract ang concept. At ang panghuli ay ang resources of media. Ito ay tumutukoy sa iba't ibang learning resources na makikita sa loob at labas ng paaralan na tumutulong sa teaching-learning process. Sa loob ng school, kabilang dito ang library o reading center, computer laboratory, science laboratory, at school garden. Ang mga ito ay nagbibigay ng pagkakataon sa mga estudyante na mag-research, mag-explore, at matuto through hands-on activities. Kaya mas nagiging engaging ang lesson. Sa labas naman ng school, mayroon tayong community resources tulad ng museums, history places, farms, factories, markets, hospitals, at government offices. Sa pamamagitan ng field trips, educational visits, at guest speakers, mas nakikita ng mga mag-aaral ang connection ng lesson sa totoong buhay. Sa learner-centered teaching, mahalaga ang paggamit ng mga media resources dahil hindi lang sa libro natatapos ang pagkatuto, kundi napapalawak ito sa pamamagitan ng real-life experiences. Sa kabuuan, ang maingat at tamang pagpili ng instructional materials ay isang mahalagang bahagi ng learner-centered teaching. Kapag ang mga materyales ay akma sa learners, malinaw ang layunin at madaling gamitin, mas naging makabuluhan, engaging at epektibo ang pagkatuto.